What's going on, everybody? It is that time again. The Sooners Illustrated Podcast, episode 139.
39.
On this Monday, December 23rd, 2024. Josh Callaway, James D. Jackson with you on a Monday. No Tom Green today, a little under the weather. So James and I will take care of it on a Monday, this pre-Christmas Eve edition of the Sooners Illustrated Podcast. Some portal stuff to get into. Oklahoma made another addition this morning. We'll talk about that. We'll also kind of evaluate what they've done in the portal so far. I know some fans are kind of like, they're a little unsure of what the Sooners have done to this point. We'll talk about it. We'll discuss. It's also game week. Oklahoma plays Navy on Friday. We'll get into that a little bit on the program, and we'll recap some of the latest for basketball as both those teams just keep winning. It's a good trip to Charlotte for both Porter Moser and Jenny Baranchek's squad. So we'll recap the week that was for OU on the hardwood. But, James, let's start with the portal as per usual this time of year. Oklahoma did make another addition this morning, and it was at a spot that was sorely needed. Colin and I talked about it on Friday. We just kind of, what was the plan really at tight end? It seemed like every guy that they had kind of pursued, put out an offer for, they hadn't landed. And the two tight ends that played, the vast majority of the snaps this year were both moving on, and Jake Roberts and Bauer Sharp. They needed to make an addition here, at least one, and they did that today with Kennesaw State's Carson Kent. So Carson is a guy with a couple years of eligibility, had a decent year, in the pass catching game this year for Kennesaw State, 18 catches, 217 yards, 3 touchdowns. Obviously, James, from where he comes from at the FCS level, and he didn't have a monster year, and he was productive, but not a monster year by any means. I guess my question to you here is, does this do enough for you? What were you kind of at with this pickup with Carson Kent? Obviously, they had to do something. You had to get someone in here, and they did that here. What do you make of this pickup, and just kind of in general, that tight end room right now? It's kind of in a weird spot.
It's a weird spot, as you said. It's a decent pickup, I would say. It's a pretty decent pickup because he's a guy that you look at his PFF grades. A lot of it is like how good he is at blocking and pass blocking and run blocking. He's one of those type of tight ends that is better suited for that type of situation. He scores over 70.0 in a lot of those areas. And so that's kind of what OU's getting out of him. And then also you add in that ability to score touchdowns. He had 3. It was at a lower level, but it shows you he can produce a little bit somewhere. If you absolutely need him to do something, he can do it. So that's kind of where I see this for him. Just like, for what this tight end room needs, because you don't know what you have in Devon Mitchell yet. Maybe you'll see that in the bowl game this weekend. You got to see what's going on there first before you really know, all right, who we need to go after. Because, like I think we've reminded a lot of people, this isn't the only transfer portal window. There's more time coming for a lot of different teams because some teams are still playing in the playoffs right now. So, like, all those guys still have to have their ability to do something. So, just really be patient with it here and just see what OU has. And see how this guy even develops, because maybe Joe John Finley is seeing something really nice in him that he can really develop here with him. So I think it's a decent pickup overall. What do you got?
Yeah, no, I think it's a good point of the post-spring window, I think, is going to have to be utilized because it's hard to envision the room the way it is right now being what Oklahoma would want or hope for going into obviously another season in the SEC. That's not to bury Carson Kent. Obviously we just committed today. So it's not like I know the life story of him, but obviously it's hard to envision a guy making that jump to the SEC and having, tight end 1 potential in the passing game, right? You need a passing option in that spot. It again puts more emphasis on Devon Mitchell. Is he going to be ready? And the rest of the room, Cade McIntyre, you presume can maybe take another step. Caden Helms is, still trying to work back from all the injuries he's had. He's still around, at least for now. Obviously, there's another portal window. This window's not closed, and there's another window, like we said, after the spring. But, they had to do something, and they got someone in here. We'll see what he looks like in the spring, but it's certainly not. I think most fans would have hoped when the season ended and, the tight end room has been not great for Oklahoma the last couple of years and Bauer Sharp move on. Let's see if we can make us a big splash here in the tight end room. And I don't know if this is really it. Again, it sounds like I'm bashing the player. It could be a very solid pickup for you, but it feels like they need more, right? They need to do more. I don't know if that's going to be in this window or the post-spring window, but I feel like they need more in that tight end room. I mean, it's kind of the way it is, but
yeah,
they had to do something, and they did it here with Carson Kent, and we'll see what kind of addition he can be, and maybe he does help in the pass blocking, type of situations. I don't know. We'll see. And that pivots nicely into kind of the broader picture that I wanted to ask you about is just kind of what Oklahoma's done in the portal in general. So Carson Kent was their 8th pickup.
Yeah.
They've all been on offense so far, with the exclusion of Jacob Ulrich, the punter, who's also from Kennesaw State, who got this thing started.
Yeah.
So I'll recap real quick. So you got Ulrich from Kennesaw State and Carson Kent, then Luke Baklenko from Stanford, offensive tackle, Derek Simmons from Western Carolina, offensive tackle, trio of receivers, Giovanni Gibson from Arkansas Pine Bluff, Countess Lewis from Southern Illinois, Isaiah Satania from Arkansas, and then, of course, John Mateer, the quarterback, the headliner from Washington State.
Yeah.
What do you make of what Oklahoma's done in the portal so far? Now, they're not done, but Brent Venables said they're looking to take about 8 to 12. That's 8. So, they're not going to do a ton more. Probably, they're hoping for, we know, if you're a VIP member, some other names that are floating out there. Hoping for maybe 2 or 3 more. What do you make of what they've done in the portal at this point? Because I know a lot of fans are kind of looking at this slate a lot from the lower levels, a lot from the FCS. Is this enough for you? What do you just in general kind of make of what Oklahoma has done in this cycle? And it's not done, but to this point with 8 guys in the book.
I think it's very heavy on the offensive coordinator and the quarterback coming in. I think that is a lot of what Oklahoma needed anyway. Now, you saw a plethora of guys leave and go elsewhere and land at pretty good spots. And so it shows you that Oklahoma had the talent, but schematically they didn't have what they needed. And so you bring the offensive coordinator in Ben Arbuckle, and you bring John Mateer to come in as quarterback that runs a system that he already knows very well. You bring that in, and that, I think, is a lot of what OU needs. They need to be able to scheme guys open. Like, that was the one thing we griped about all season long, is it didn't have that ability. You hope with Ben Arbuckle that's the case for him, because he seems like this offensive guru so far in his short career as an offensive coordinator. Sure. But you want that to be for OU, and I think that's where you kind of get a lot of this transfer portal class and the kind of the relief that Oklahoma fans were looking for. Now you add in guys like the receivers and the offensive line unit, because offensive line is going to be it's going to be a little bit different, but a lot of guys are going to be back. So you have 6 guys leaving with Hickman, Tarquin, Brown, Hatchett, Brooks, and Bates, either the graduation or transferring. So you have those 6 guys coming out, and you add, 2 really, really good offensive linemen that have a lot of size. And so that helps out a lot, because the left side of your offensive line is already, I think, solidified with Howland and Ozida. You get somebody on the right side, which is kind of what Derek Simmons is, a right tackle. He's played that and he's done it a lot. Yeah. You bring a guy like that with experience, and he has, a lot of it, what was it, 26 starts? Yeah, 26 starts over his college career. I mean, that's what you need. You need guys like that you can trust and put in there to really just protect the quarterback, because I think John Mateer has all the ability in the world, especially under Ben Arbuckle, and you're going to see a lot of that. I really love Isaiah Satania, the receiver from Arkansas. Very speedy guy. I think he may even be underused, even though he was the second leading pass catcher for that team last year or this year, however you want to look at it. But he was really, really good. And I think he can be a very useful piece for Ben Arbuckle and his offense, because you got guys like Deion Burks is going to cause attention. You got even guys like Jordan. I mean, that's going to cause attention here. So there's areas I see with this class, because like you said, it's a lot on the offensive side of trying to replace everything, replace some production and make a new scheme. And I think that was the big focus point for this, is getting the best scheme. So once Ben Arbuckle and John Mateer decided to come, that was what a lot of Oklahoma fans wanted to see. After that, it's icing on the cake of the guys they're bringing in, because the scheme is supposed to help out here, and we'll see what happens with it.
Yeah, I'm kind of split on this as far as I think what fans are their complaints I think are valid in terms of, it's a lot of lower level pickups. So you're looking at, this was a very important portal cycle for Oklahoma to try and gear up for things to turn around. I mean, obviously the season didn't go as planned. So you want to see the team be really aggressive, the program, right? Really throw some money around and be like, this season wasn't acceptable. we're going to be very aggressive in fixing it, right? And so you look at the what they brought in so far. I think it's fair to kind of look at it as, is this enough to turn it around and to get us from 6-6 to where we want to be? That being said, while I think that's all valid, it's a little misleading on some of it, because I know a lot of people have thrown out they have one Power 4 transfer with Satania from Arkansas. That's a little misleading, because Baklenko and John Mateer, those were Power 4 programs a year ago, right? I mean, when those guys went to the schools they're at, they were Power 4. And which Stanford's in the ACC now. So that's two Power 4 guys. Then Mateer, and then Keontae Lewis was at Wisconsin right before Southern Illinois. Like, so you can kind of pull the threads on that stat a little bit when you start to use more context to where these guys have actually come from and the level of players they are. And, you know, I think more than anything, the best portal additions that Oklahoma has made, outside of John Mateer, which obviously they ponied up for. And, you know, look, I don't know what Miami or North Carolina, what kind of money was on the table there for John Mateer. All I can speak to is what Oklahoma did.
Yeah.
He wasn't cheap. Okay. They had to step up to get that done. So it's not like they bargained shop on him. He was the number one player in the portal, right?
Yeah.
I mean, that took some doing to get that done and to get John Mateer in here. And then, like I said, the best portal stuff that they've maybe done outside of John Mateer is the guys they've kept, like Deion Burks, which is that's as good as anything you could have done in the portal, is keeping Deion Burks here.
Yeah.
Same thing for Jay Gibson. Same thing for Armason Thomas, who hasn't made anything official, but things have sounded positive there. If they keep him, which it sounds like things are sounding good, that's the same. Like, that's bigger than anything you could have done in the portal, is ponying up to keep him. I know that's not flashy because it's not an addition, but that's as good of a player as you could have possibly gotten, right? So there's some nuance and some context. I think it's fair to kind of be like, is this portal cycle going to be enough to turn things around for Oklahoma? But when you look at the key pieces they've kept, because I still don't really think they've lost much. I mean, I'll be totally honest there. I mean,
based off last season. Yeah. I mean, the receivers, when they're healthy are great, but are they going to be healthy? And then Deshaun McCullough is really the only defensive guy that I think is, I'll call him significant, but like, they're going to be fine. I don't think like, oh man, they're just in shambles. They have plenty of other cheetah options. Like, they're going to be okay. Yeah. I really don't think they've lost a whole lot of nothing that they've left in the portal to this point really, I think, is overly damaging. And maybe that's naive on my part, but so I think, I don't know. It's a little bit, I kind of see it both ways. That's kind of what I want to say as well. I'm not like talking about this class. I'm not saying it's the greatest class, whatever. Sure. I'm kind of putting it in perspective here. What Oklahoma needed was just a decent offense last year. Like, that's all they needed to be a great team. I think you bring these guys in. I mean, they've obviously had to watch these guys and their injury history and things like that. That I'm pretty sure that played a really big part in who they picked up here. Like, those guys, you talked about them being at previous Power 4 schools and things like that. I'm not a guy that's too hung up on where he played last year type of guy. Like, if he's good, he's good. Like, that's the whole point. Is if you're great, somebody will find you. And, you go to somebody that's proven, and you'll look at the guys that, whatever level it was, if they're proven, they can help you. And I think OU is recognizing that as well. So like I said, getting John Mateer and Ben Arbuckle to run this system and run the schematics that they need to win, I think is the biggest part of all of this. Like, it really does help out a lot. And that's where I see it. That's where I see it, man. Like, it's, I can't say too much more about it. Like, that's where I see it, as if what you wanted from this transfer class, that's what it was. It's not a lot of CeeDee Lambs and Dede Westbrooks, like those type of guys just walking around right there, like in the portal and things like that. It's just not very likely,
And part of it too is, Oklahoma, Brent Venables and his staff, they're banking on some of their younger guys, some of the guys they recruited to step up and to be, bigger piece of the team next year. And again, they're not done here. We talked about it last week with Colin. There's a number of guys. They haven't made any additions on defense so far. Not that they're in dire need, but there's some spots where they could use another body or two. And they're chasing guys that we've talked about, both on the defensive edge, the defensive tackle room, cornerback. I think that they certainly would like to add a kicker, who we talked about, Lucas Carniero last week. He just was in town for a visit. Yep. So we'll see what else they can add here. But, I mean, you got the big quarterback. You've added a few receivers, a couple of tackles. We'll see. I mean, at the end of the day, all is going to depend on how productive they can all be. I mean, if a couple of these receivers pan out and are big parts of the offense, who cares where they were before? You know what I mean? It's kind of one of those things. So we'll see. We'll continue to keep an eye on it, but a little uneasy for now. They're not winning the offseason PR. You know, you're not going to win a lot.
It's not flashy. It's not flashy.
Guys from, Southern Illinois. Like, it just, from a national perspective, right or wrong, that's just kind of the way that goes. We'll see. As far as this season, there is still one more game to be played, and it's this week. It's finally game week again, bowl week. Oklahoma plays Navy on Friday morning in Fort Worth. James and I will be heading down there later this week. Colin Kennedy is going to be there as well. He's going to link up with us and help us cover the bowl game down there at M&G Carter Stadium. Nice. We'll have the preview later this week. James and I will do that after the media day, which is on Thursday morning. So keep an eye out for that on Thursday. Full press conference with Brent Venables and a couple of players I believe are expected to be available on Thursday. But as far as, it's actually game week now. It's going to be kind of a hodgepodge team because you're not going to have Danny Stutzman. You're not going to have Billy Bowman. Also, other guys who portaled out. It's going to be Michael Hawkins starting at quarterback. So I don't know how much this game really means for next year, but I want to ask you, what would a win do? Because 7-6 and 6-7 feels a lot different. I mean,
for sure.
One's a winning season, one isn't. What's the key for Oklahoma this week in your mind? Or what are you watching for? What's like the storyline? And again, how much would Oklahoma enjoy a win here? Because it feels like they kind of could use one to kind of get a little positivity at the tail end of this thing.
Yeah, it's really just how this offense is going to run, which is kind of, I guess, what we talked about last time they had a bowl game. It was like trying to see what Jackson Arnold and Seth Luttrell and those guys were going to scheme up for him and how that was going to work. And I think we got a good dose of what it was going to be. It was very good offense here and there, but turnovers kind of causing to lose the game. And I think that's what the telling issue was throughout this season. Now, Ben Arbuckle doesn't get to call plays in this one, so it's not like the same situation. But you're curious how Michael Hawkins fits into what Jackson Arnold was doing at the end of the year that was working for Oklahoma, which is using his legs a lot. And you expect Michael Hawkins to be maybe a little bit better in that area and see how he can do that with Xavier Robinson in the backfield, Javante Barnes. Those guys are all going to be, I think, available for OU in this one. So just watching how that shows up. And the line of scrimmage on both sides of the ball is going to be very, very important, especially with the way that Navy plays offense. It's a storyline. I mean, it's just seeing how that's going to play. You look at these college football games so far, and the line of scrimmage is what has been like deciding these games. As you can tell, like whatever team is getting the most push is the team that's going to win these games, and that's why you're seeing blowouts, because there's just nothing you can do about it. And so that's going to be a really big focal point for OU, as some of these guys are trying to make their last impressions, in on the offensive line side, and just win a game to end their college careers and things like that. As you said, being 7-6 is way better than 6-7. Like, it's just, you want to be on the winning side of it. And, and it'd be crazy to look back after everything that Oklahoma went through, injury wise and personnel changes, to still be have a winning season. That would be a really, really good feat for Brent Venables in this era, because just, what happened with him on the field, off the field, things like that, all those things that happened to him and this unit overall. It would mean a lot, I think, at least to OU fans, because, as you said, it's a boost for next year as well. There's always vibe checks in this situation, especially in college football now. Like, that can help out a lot if Michael Hawkins or Xavier Robinson, leads this team to a victory, and that'd be pretty cool overall.
Yeah, no, we talked about it before, but it feels like the bowl games more and more in this modern college football, with all the transfer portal window opening before the games and all that, it's really more of a jump on the next season. Yeah,
seeing your young guys
wrapping up this past year, it gives you some vibes going in. And look, they haven't won a bowl game under Brent Venables yet. But each of the last 2 years, even though they were losses, there were positive things to take from them into the offseason. Think of Brent Venables' first year. They were huge underdogs against Florida State. And that Florida State team had dudes all over. They went undefeated.
They were undefeated, yeah.
They were legit. And that Oklahoma team also went 6-6 and were big underdogs, and they had a chance to win that game late. Even though they lost, there was kind of that feeling of like, all right, maybe a corner was being turned, and like year 2 is going to be different. It was. They won 10 games, and now the end of last year was Jackson Arnold's first start. While they turned the ball over a few times, you could see the potential through for 300 plus yards. Now that potential didn't end up playing out that way. The offense obviously had the year it had, but still you kind of rode what you saw that night in San Antonio last year through the whole offseason. So you just want more of that. You want to just end feeling good about things. And I'll tell you what, a loss to Navy, which, is having a good season. They won 9 games this year. They just rolled over Army in the Army-Navy game. Good team. That's still not a game that you should lose if you're Oklahoma. And that's a sour way to end your year if you lose to Navy. So I think more than anything, Oklahoma, you need to win. I do think just vibes, you need to win the game. But you just want something to kind of feel good about. Some of the pieces that will be on the team next year. It's a big game for Michael Hawkins, certainly. And some of these other young guys will be back next year, especially in the wide receiver room and on offense in general. O-line too, Devon Mitchell, if he gets in there, he's on the 3 deep. Can those guys have something positive to take with them? Because it always seems like there's 1 or 2 freshmen who do some nice things in the bowl that kind of propels them into the offseason. So we'll see. But, I do think it's pretty important for Oklahoma to win the game, which is, maybe a little silly, but you don't want to lose today at the end of the year. That's just that's not a good way to end your year. Yeah. So
and just for those that saw the depth chart with Devon Mitchell's weight, he kind of said that was a typo. Basically, that's not his official weight. He's not a offensive lineman coming up. Yeah, it's not the situation for him. So that was
Yeah, people did a double take on that. I think he was listed at like 289.
Yeah, it was something like he's getting close to offensive lineman status.
Like, holy moly. It's like, no, a little typo there.
Yeah.
But we'll see. And we're going to be there on Friday. Looking forward to it. It's going to be really weird playing a bowl game at TCU Stadium. Stadium I've covered OU TCU games before. And it'll be a neutral site game with Navy. Should be a little interesting. Friday morning, I imagine a lot of OU fans will be there. Just obviously stone's throw away down there in DFW where there's a lot of OU fans anyway. And we'll have full coverage from Boots on the Ground in Fort Worth. Again, Media Day is Thursday the 26th. We'll have a lot of coverage from that. And then obviously full coverage, like always, on game day, which is going to be on Friday. And we'll have full post-game reaction afterward here on the YouTube channel as well as the website of our instant reaction. And then you can hear from Brent Venables and the team after we wrap up the 2024 season on Friday.
And before we move on, I want to point out too, we didn't really talk about the defensive side of this, but I'm really interested in seeing some of those guys that we think are going to take the torch from the previous guys, like Kip Lewis. Want to see what he does. Eli Bowen, Jaden Jackson, like those type of guys. Robert Spears-Jennings, seeing how they're going to take the torch from the previous guys and take over. Because that's the whole point of these bowl games, I guess, at this point in time, like you said, to get a jump start on next season. So it's like, how will these guys look in this role? And I know Jaden Jackson got a lot of that already throughout the season because he was a starter and things like that. But seeing how they are just being the guy now, being the one that everybody has to rely on for sure, as you're the one that's going on, especially Kip Lewis and Robert Spears-Jennings, who are taking the torch from really, really good players, great players from Oklahoma and Danny Stutzman and Billy Bowman. Those type of guys taking the torch. So just wanting to see what they do, especially production-wise, how they lead the team. You want to see who's going to be the leader of this defense next year because Danny Stutzman's obviously not going to be there. Who's going to take that torch? Like that's all kind of interesting. Those storylines you want to watch for this bowl game, especially on the defensive side for OU, because you're expecting something. A lot of tackles from somebody with the way Navy plays football. So Michael Boganowski was a name that came up a bunch of times from just the players when we're talking to him because, he's one of those safeties, like he just hits. That's all he does is hit. You saw it in the spring game, like any opportunity he got, he's one of those guys that loves it. So this may be his favorite game if he gets a good amount of playing time. So just seeing that on the defensive side as well.
Yeah, I'm on Kip Lewis 20 tackle plus watch. The last time Oklahoma played a service academy against Army, that's when Kenneth Murray just piled up.
Man, it was so many.
Number of tackles. Curtis Bolton did too that day. So, watch out for the linebackers to pile them up. Kip Lewis and Kobe McKenzie, and obviously get Lewis Carter and Samuel Masigo some more run, I would imagine. So it'll be fun. And looking forward to it on Friday. A little different type of matchup. It might be like a 2-hour game because I think both teams are going to run the ball a lot.
It's going to run,
which is fine. Let's zip through this thing and look forward to that on Friday. Going to be like 70 degrees in Fort Worth, by the way. Have you checked that?
I didn't know that at all.
Probably a little chilly in the morning because it's an early kick, but it's going to be a nice day.
Wow. So it'll be packed.
Nice. Yeah, it'll be nice. We take it. We'll take it. All right. Before we wrap up, let's do a little bit of basketball. Those teams just keep on winning. We'll start with the men. Porter Moser, 12-0. They only moved up to number 12 in the AP poll today. I thought they might crack the top 10 for the second time or in back-to-back years, but they only got a little bit of a bump up to 2 spots to number 12. But, man, they're playing well. Oklahoma went into the jump man. We talked about that last week. That was going to be their toughest test so far, playing against a good Michigan team with 2 7-footers in their starting 5. Man. And that was not, on paper, this is a really tough matchup for Oklahoma. Like, this is going to be a tough one to overcome. And they trailed pretty much the whole game, but they just kind of hung around. And then Jeremiah Fears is a stud. 4-point play. He puts up 30 points. They beat Michigan at the buzzer. They then took care of business. They rolled over Central Arkansas at home yesterday. They're 12-0. Again, barring disaster, they'll be undefeated going into SEC play. It's unbelievable what they've done. And that win over Michigan was an eye-opener, because that's one of the wins that when you get to the end of the year and it's the selection Sunday, and hopefully Oklahoma's not on the bubble, but if they are, those are the kind of wins that propel you up over. So I think Michigan's going to win a lot of games. That's a neutral site game. That's a quad 1 win, as they like to call it. Big deal. James, I'm sure you were watching. It's been really fun to watch this team, and they're just getting better and better. And these guards, Jeremiah Fears, Duke Miles had a monster game yesterday, 29 points against Central Arkansas. They're playing really good ball, and it's kind of nice right now that it's kind of a different guy each night. It's not really reliant on any one guy. Jalen Moore's had his big nights. Jeremiah Fears had his big nights. Kobe Elvis, Duke Miles. It's kind of – they've got a lot of guys who can score. This is the best scoring team that Porter Moser's had, and they're playing really good ball.
See, now this is the point I want to bring up, Josh. During the offseason, when all this was happening, from the guys that Porter Moser was bringing in, it was like, what is he doing? I don't know how this is working out. It's the same thing with the football side. This is he's bringing guys that work for your system. You're seeing it now. You kind of bring in those guys, you anchor them around maybe a young guy, some of the young guys you're looking at, Jeremiah Fears in this situation. And it can work out for you. It's not just about where the guys came from, what schools they played for. Sometimes it takes them a little bit longer to develop, and then they finally prove themselves, and you get them in. And that's what I'm seeing from this men's basketball team, because it was a team that I don't think a lot of us had high expectations for. Even around the media, they didn't have it because they weren't ranked
in the preseason bowl.
Yeah, they weren't ranked. They had 15th in the SEC. It was that's not something you expected. This type of run so far. And so this is a really, really good sign for this men's basketball team, because we talked about Porter Moser. This may be his make or break year just for him. He has to get into the NCAA tournament. And a start like this definitely gets you there. That's it gives you a lot of optimism that if this team can keep it up, that they're going to be there, because they played some good teams, Josh. They've played some good teams, not just beating up on, lower level schools. There's some things here and there where they're really taking these teams to the brim and coming back in certain games. Like you talked about it, man, it's really, really good from them. And I think it's similar to what the football situation is for OU. You find the right guys and it can just work. It's perfect for you. Yeah.
No, the win over Michigan was really impressive. One of the better wins truly of the Porter Moser era, to come back into battle. And, Michigan is a good team, and they played well. Michigan played well, and they're a bad matchup for Oklahoma with the 2 7-footers, and they still just found a way. And Jeremiah Fears, man, this guy, again, I've said it a few times, enjoy him while he's here, because this is it. It's one and done for him, because he is just getting better and better and better. To put up 30 in that game was just unreal. He is so much fun, and I'm excited to watch the team in SEC play. Obviously, we're all kind of still being a little cautious until we get there, but man, Duke Miles is playing really good ball. Jalen Moore is a freak of nature. Sam Godwin's been great the last couple of weeks. They're playing good ball. It's a fun team.
And they're one game better than they were last year, right? Going into this stretch.
Yeah, they were 10-0 going into Jumpman and lost last year to Carolina. And then they were, I think, 12-1 going into Big 12 play. So they should be 13-0 this time.
Yeah.
But and they come right out of the gates in Tuscaloosa to start against a really good Alabama team, and then the first SEC home game, Texas A&M in Norman, the following Wednesday. So they got some huge tests coming up. They're going to stumble. They're going to take some losses here soon. The schedule's just too brutal. But they've built themselves up quite a cushion when it comes to getting back to the tournament. So lots of really exciting team. They're having fun right now, and OU fans are starting to really jump on board, which is fun to see.
Yeah.
as far as the women's team, they also went to Charlotte and got a win over Michigan. Kind of a different style game than you're used to seeing them play because they score just at will. They scored over 100 again yesterday.
Yep.
That game with Michigan, though, I had it on. I mean, it was kind of a slobber knocker game. Like, it was lower scoring for a lot of it, kind of some points late.
Yeah.
But a great win over a good Michigan team. They then dominated again yesterday. Again, repeating, they have one loss. It was in overtime against a really good Duke team. They're playing really good basketball. It's hard to imagine that they won't at least have a chance to win every game they play.
Yeah.
They're number 9 in the AP poll right now. Kind of the same as the men. SEC play is coming up. Some huge tests are coming up. But, another test pass with going into Charlotte and winning against Michigan. James, this team is good, and I'm excited to watch them get into SEC play.
Yeah, as you said, even like playing Michigan, that was a team that was number 20 at the time this past week. They were on a 9-game win streak. So it was a really, really good team. And OU just, took them down. I mean, it was obviously, you said, it wasn't the scoring output that they're used to, but they were able to figure things out and win that game pretty comfortably there. And then you go against Central Arkansas, well, not Central, that was the men. You go against Omaha, and they have a 7-game win streak coming into it. And it did not matter at all. Like, from the very beginning, like, Reagan Beers showed, like, she was a level above everything that Omaha could throw at her. Like, it took 3 possessions, Josh.
She's unreal. Yeah.
Took 3 possessions. She scores through a foul on the center. That's the tallest player for Omaha, 6'2". She goes down there, steals the ball, comes back down, scores again over another foul, and the girl has to sit out for a remainder of the first quarter and a half. And like that's like after that, you're just not going to be able to stop her. If that's your best option, it just wasn't going to work. So you got out to this big start at the beginning and just put the game away. After that, it was just like 3 points galore. Like, it was just falling for them, especially in that second half. And you saw a bunch of different players, show their worth. Like Kirsten Johnson, who was kind of a more defensive style player, was putting up good numbers offensively for OU, scoring 12 points. Zaya Van was back out there scoring, more comfortably. Skylar Van, having a really, really good game. So it's like it was all around once Reagan Beers set the tone for them. And I think that's kind of a lot of what this season is. Like, now that they have Beers, they have that anchor. It's just like it helps out a lot because it can get them started, jumpstart them. It helps them play really, really good defense because they have her back there. And it was just incredible. I mean, Reagan Beers she drew 7 fouls in this game and didn't foul anybody on her end. Like,
that's called just overwhelming.
That's overwhelming. Like, they just can't handle her. It's basically what it is. So like, it's pretty good to see where this OU women's team is, and I'm sure that we want to see more tests for them, and it's going to come up here because they got Texas, and I think week and a half or so, Texas comes to Norman for the SEC opener, and so that's the biggest test to start.
I'm excited for that game.
Yeah, Texas has been in the top 4 a couple of times this year. They're number 5 right now, so it's a really, really good team. And last time these two teams played, Lexi Keys hit the 3-point shot to win the Big 12 title against Texas. So, regular season title, I guess we should say that, but it's really good for them. So.
No, they're playing great. I thought it was really good to see them win a game. Like I said, that was kind of a grinded out, lower scoring game because we know they can just score with anyone. They have so many shooters and the way Reagan Beers can dominate the glass. But to win a game where it was kind of more they had to lean on their defense a little bit, I think it's really encouraging that they could win that style of game against a good team. And then kind of what I said about the men earlier, where there's all these different guys. It's not relying on any one guy. It's the same way for the women's team. I mean, you look at, that game against Michigan, nobody went off in the score column. I mean, Peyton Verhulst had 12, Skylar Van had 12. Those are your leading scorers. But either one of them can have a big night for you at any given time offensively.
Peyton Verhulst has showed that. Yeah.
Reagan Beers, Lexi Keys off the bench can get hot and carry you offensively, certainly on any given night. Like, the fact that they're not reliant on any one player like the men is huge because eventually everyone has off nights. So the fact that you feel like the odds of them all having off nights, it could happen. It probably will at some point because that's how sports go. But
OKC saw that.
It diminishes, the lack of how likely that is. Like, you're going to feel like you have an offensive weapon available to you that's feeling good every night when you have that many. So it's fun. It's fun to watch. They're really good. I'm excited for that Texas game. I feel like we kind of are just waiting for that with them because they just keep passing every test. And so it's like, let's just let's get into some of these big heavy hitter SEC games and really start to see just how good they are. Because we all know they're really good, but are they like elite,
yeah.
win a national title good? We're
Yeah.
going to find out soon. And that's exciting. So look forward to that.
Yeah. And you said it, like just not having one player. Like it's so much easier to key in on one person, especially in the postseason where it really matters.
Yeah.
Just slow that person down and you win the game. Because like at that point in time, the other players don't have a rhythm because they're not used to being that person on this team. And so that it changed a lot. Right. Now, with like you said, with both teams being able to just do whatever. OU, women's and men's, can score from anywhere on the floor. There's nothing that they can't do. So if one thing maybe isn't working at this time, they just have the other option to help them score. And so it's just really just playing good defense after that. So it's like that's kind of the situation for both teams, I think. And that's a really good situation to be in.
For sure. Fun team. Excited to see them get into some SEC games here coming up. The men too, as we flip the calendar to January here coming up at the end of next week. I think that's it. Like I said, we'll be down in Fort Worth later this week. We'll have the next couple of days. Obviously, no shows the next couple of days, Christmas and everything. So hopefully everybody has a good holiday. Yep. And we'll come back. And on Thursday, again, the 26th, is the Armed Forces Bowl Media Day. That's in the morning. It's at 10 a.m. So look up for the full press conference on the YouTube channel here shortly thereafter. And then James and I will do a little preview of the game live from Fort Worth on Thursday afternoon. Can't wait. And then we'll have full game coverage on Friday as Oklahoma takes on Navy in the Armed Forces Bowl down there in Fort Worth. And Colin Kenny's going to join us for that as well. So that'll be a fun little different. Tom's going to cover the game remotely from Florida, visiting some family. He got to go home, which is cool. And I think that's it. Any final thoughts? Pre-Christmas thoughts?
And just hang out with your family, man. Everybody
enjoy it,
because you never know. You never know. You know, I have some past relatives that won't be here this year just because time happens. So be with your family and really appreciate what you have, man. Things can change a lot. So
100%. Well said. Think that's it for now. We'll be back on Thursday with Armed Forces Bowl coverage live from Fort Worth. We'll see you then. Everybody have a good Christmas holiday. For James D. Jackson, I'm Josh Callaway signing off for now. We'll see you next time right back here on the Sooners Illustrated podcast.
See you.